The July 9th deadlines are looming. If we don't get good deals in time, we could see the stock market falling down once again if investors are not happy. With all that being said, I'm going to be telling you guys all the news, all the trade deals we already have, and what countries we're waiting on. And potentially what countries may be getting that 70% tariff Donald Trump was talking about. And towards the end of the video, I'm going to be showing you guys some stocks that can benefit and or stocks that can also go down. So you guys can be watching the right thing for the July 9th deadline and make the most out of it. Without further ado, let's get started. So now let's break down the trade deal situation. As of July 6th, 2025, with that July 9th deadline looming, the US has been pushing hard to lock in some trade agreements since President Trump announced a 90-day pause on steep reciprocal tariffs back on April 9th, 2025. That pause is set to expire on July 9th, and countries that don't have deals by then could face tariff hikes, some as high as 70%. So let's talk about everything and all the deals that is going on. So trade deals secured so far. The US has finalized or announced deals with a few countries, though some are more like frameworks than fully fleshed out agreements. So we do have United Kingdom. A deal was announced on May 8th, 2025, lowering some tariffs on both sides and increasing market access for US exports by billions. It also includes carve-outs for the UK's steel and automotive industries, but key sticking points remain unresolved, and it's not a comprehensive agreement. Next, we have China. A framework deal was reached in June 2025, easing some trade tensions. The US lifted restrictions on chip design software and ethane exports to China, signaling a thaw. However, it's not a full trade agreement, and broader issues are still on the table. Next, we have Vietnam. This one was recent. A deal was finalized by June 2nd, 2025, setting a 20% tariff on Vietnamese imports, down from the threatened 46%, and a 40% tariff on goods transshipped through Vietnam, like from China and other countries. So if another country puts it through Vietnam, they're not going to get that 20%, they're going to get 40% basically, just to help prevent, China from trying to export some things through Vietnam for the lower tariff. In return, many US goods face no duties in Vietnam, which is kind of insane. Zero tariffs. Honestly, crazy. Next, we have Indonesia, mentioned in some reports as having a deal, though details are sparse. A $34 billion pact was referenced, but it's unclear if it's fully finalized or just in progress. So that's all the countries that we have deals with so far. So some negotiations we have. So we have India. Talks are intense with US and Indian officials meeting in early July. A deal was called, very possible, by Trump and imminent early, but it's likely to be a framework for future talks rather than done by July 9th. Expect something in weeks, not days. European Union, the EU, is in final stage talks, willing to accept the 10% tariff on many exports, but pushing for exemptions on pharmaceuticals, alcohol, semiconductors, and aircraft stuff, Trump has threatened 50% tariffs if no deal is reached. Talks are expected to continue through the weekend before July 9th. So we might get something next week on Monday or something related to that. Next, we have Canada. Negotiations resumed after Canada scraped the digital service tax that irked Trump. They're aiming for a deal by July 21st, but it's unclear if they'll hit the July 9th deadline. Canada lumber faces potential tariff hikes from 14.5% to 34.45% without an agreement. Next, we have Japan. Things look rough here. Trump has expressed doubt about reaching a deal, citing that Japan is refusing to import U.S. rice despite a domestic shortage, which is honestly kind of petty. He's threatening 30 to 35% tariffs, higher than the paused 24% rate. Japan is scheduled to meet U.S. officials soon, but a deal by July 9th seems unlikely. South Korea, mentioned as potential candidate for a preliminary deal, but no concrete progress has been reported. Mexico, talks are ongoing, but no specific updates, suggesting a deal is imminent by July 9th. Others, so there are about 180 countries potentially affected by the tariff policy, and many smaller trading partners haven't even gotten the seat at the table. The US is reportedly negotiating with over a dozen major partners, but only 10 to 12 are expected to finalize deal by the deadline. But with that being said, man, it just seems like none of the countries, or not none, but most of the countries aren't really going to, get a chance to get a deal by the July 9th. And Donald Trump says that he won't extend the July 9th trade deadline. And with the Japan deal overall. You may be wondering, what is the deal with the deadline? Trump has been very, very firm about not extending the July 9th deadline, saying he'll send letters to countries starting July 7th to notify them of new tariff rates ranging from 10 to 70% effective August 1st. With all of that being said, man, I wanted to announce, the countries that we do already have. We do got some major countries like China, Europe potentially, and other bigger countries like that. But we still have a bunch of other countries that are still going to be affected by these tariffs if it does hit. And we can potentially see a sell off like we did in the past. So, this is why I mentioned that at the beginning of explaining what all deals we have so far, what all deals are in works, and what all deals that hasn't even been talking about yet, because that can bring the market down overall. But now we're going to talk about some individual stocks that might benefit and or go down because of this. And there are a decent amount. So we're going to be just talking about the true ones and we're going to be talking about like the bigger ones, the bigger ones where you can make the big money. So let's get started. So first one is going to be Ford, and we already benefited a decent amount off this one as well. And you could probably see it get back to the highs of that $15 level. But watch that 12.15 to that 13.15 if we do continue going up. Ford is really sensitive to tariffs due to its reliance on imported vehicles and auto parts, which also face 25% tariff. But it did recently go up with the Vietnamese deal because the tariffs are lower and lower than that 25% tariff from Vietnam. So this is one that can be affected overall, and a lot of other vehicle stocks as well, but Ford is the biggest one. Next one is FSLR, and that's First Solar and is in renewable energy. But why? This stock has been volatile due to trade policy uncertainty and the July 4th budget bill, which dropped a proposed tax on solar projects. First Solar shares jumped 8% recently as the bill progressed, reflecting optimism about policy support. However, tariffs on imported components could raise costs as solar panel production often relies on global supply chains. So a favorable trade deal could boost the sector, but tariff hikes can hurt this sector. So keep this one on your radar. Watch that 200 level. If we break above that, we can look even more bullish for First Solar. And just like First Solar, we have ENPH, but this one is not really looking too good overall. If we look at it, this one's bearish. So if you do see some bad news, you can play this one to the downside. And do not play it to the upside unless you see it break some key levels. Maybe that $60 level is when I would look into it, but honestly, this one is pretty bearish overall. And if we do get bearish news, it's just going to continue falling to the downside. So this is one that you can play to the downside. Next one is a stock that has been highly affected already, but that's Apple. And that's in the technology sector. I mean, everybody knows what Apple is, but why? Apple is a focal point for tariff impacts due to its heavy reliance on Chinese manufacturing. So if you guys don't know, I think it's like 80 to 90% of the iPhones are made in China. And if you have a big tariff hike on China, we already have a deal that's kind of secured already. But if you see a bigger tariff on China or something bad that happens, you can see Apple sell off even more. But with that being said, trade policy has been a primary concern for investors, though attention may shift to its AI development post, WWDC, on June 9th. But with that being said, man, Apple has been looking pretty good. We might have an AI deal, but other than the good news that we're getting with Apple, if we do get tariff hikes on China or anything related to where Apple gets their products at, this can affect it. But right now, we're kind of looking good because we already have the China deal and it's already priced in. But if something does change, keep Apple on your radar. Next one, a stock that has been honestly going crazy, and that is indeed Microsoft. They're big into AI. Just a lot of great news recently. I'm not even gonna lie, Microsoft is looking pretty bullish right now. But why? Microsoft has gained 12% in 2025, with its stock raising 0.5% to 472.75 cents recently, driven by bullish technical indicators like a golden cross. While it's less directly exposed to tariffs than Apple, its global supply chain and cloud infrastructure rely on international components as well. But honestly, man, the way Microsoft's looking, I don't think this can really affect it unless we have a bigger tech sell-off and you might see a little pullback. But I wanted to mention Microsoft because if we do get a pullback, you guys can get in to this bull rally that we have going on right now with Microsoft. But it is moving insane, and I do recommend watching Microsoft as well, especially if you have a little pullback. But with all that being said, guys, watch these stocks for the July 9th deadline. It can move and it can make you a decent amount of money. With that being said, smash the like button, subscribe if you guys are new, check out some courses below. Let us get to 500 subs and comment down below how you guys feel about these tariffs. And you can also comment down below how you feel about the big, beautiful bill. I'll see you guys in the next video. Stock market is going to be insane tomorrow. Get ready. Let's get some money. Peace out.